Good morning, Hillsiders and friends. Welcome this first Sunday after Christmas, technically still Christmas. And yeah, it's been an interesting Christmas. It's been really nice to see a bunch of you yesterday at our nationwide Swedenborgian Christmas gathering. And of course, it's nice to see that many of you have watched our Christmas Eve little program. So I don't know what you're bringing into this new week with you after the last few days. Maybe it was really exciting and fun and hopeful. Maybe it was a cause for sadness for you. And I hope that regardless of what exactly this season has brought for you, that we can enter into kind of a fresh start today, as we gather together and as we take a pause after these very exciting times, very exciting few days. With me behind the stage is Mr. John Scott. He's helping out with the video and with our readings. Of course, as usual, we hope that you can join us just after this at 11:30 for our virtual coffee hour via Zoom. You should have gotten the link if you are on our newsletter mailing list. If you for some reason didn't, just let me know. And I'll leave it at that for now. Now let's, as usual, kind of gather ourselves, take some breaths. And most importantly, let's calm our breath. Sit in a comfortable position. And let's just breathe for a moment. Let's observe each breath that's flowing. Let's observe all the background sounds. Let's observe the gravity pulling us towards the center of the earth. Let's observe our thoughts. And for a moment, let's visualize ourselves at the manger. We can see the animals, the people, there's a faint scent of frankincense and myrrh. Joseph and Mary are hanging out. They're kind of exhausted. And in the crib lies the baby Jesus. Peaceful and serene. Radiating light and love and innocence. Let's observe the light flowing in. The smile on baby Jesus's face. Gentle eyes observing us. And as we rest in this image, and we rest in the state that we are in right now, let's open our ears and our hearts and our minds to today's readings from the Word.
From the Gospel according to John, KJV, chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. The same came for a witness to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but he was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name, which was born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth.
From chapter 5, chapter 5 of the Lotus Sutra. For those who have not gained deliverance, I will deliver them. For those who have not been enlightened, I will enlighten them. For those who have not been peaceful, I will bestow peace for them. For those who have yet to attain nirvana, I will lead them to nirvana. I understand the present and future lifetimes just as they are. I am the omniscient. I am the omnispective. I know the way. I open the way, and I expound the way. all of you heavenly beings, humans and Asuras, come to me and listen to my law.
From Emanuel Swedenborg, True Christianity, number 364. God flows in with all his divine life, just as we understand that the sun in our world flows with all its essence, or heat and light, into every tree, every bush, and every flower, and even into every stone, both precious and common. Each form takes what it needs from the general inflow. The Lord is omnipresent, and everywhere he is present. He is present with his entire essence. It is impossible for him to take out some of his essence and give part of it to one person and another part to another. He gives it all.
And from Arcana Celestia, Secrets of Heaven, section 2034. All love to God was lost, so that there remained no longer any will to do what was good. The human race was separated from the divine. For nothing conjoins us with God and heaven but love. And when there is no love, spiritual disjunction takes place. A promise, therefore, was then made concerning the coming of the Lord into the world, who should unite the human race to the divine. And through this union should effect conjunction of the human race in himself, by a faith grounded in love and kindness. So I'm just going to sort of share a little conversation starter, open our conversation this morning with some thoughts that I've had over the past few days. And I felt moved to pick that last reading, and I had second thoughts about it. That's the reading from Secrets of Heaven. All love to God was lost, so that there remained no longer any will to do what is good. And this passage, if you read it as a whole, is really beautiful because it talks about the essence of spirituality, as Swedenborg and other mystics would argue, which is the union, the conjunction with the divine. And yet, the reason I had second thoughts about this was because the way it starts, all love to God was lost, and there remained no longer any will to do what was good. It ties into a big can of worms. And I know that some of you have looked into this and we've shared about this before. And that can of worms is an underlying kind of anti-Semitism that we have seen permeate through Western culture over the centuries. It's this kind of idea we consciously or subconsciously often have when we read these texts of Jesus' fellow Jewish people at the time somehow being in a state of darkness, of wickedness. And this is an idea that has been used to justify atrocities throughout the history of Christianity, right? Think about what the words Sadducees and Pharisees evoke in you. Perhaps negative. We forget that these were actual people we're talking about. And so I realized that I just opened a can of worms. And I don't think it'll be closed today. But I think it ties into why this passage is so important. Because engaging with the difficulty of the literal reading of the word here, which we all know, if you've ever opened up the Bible, you've probably seen some pretty horrific stuff, right? That's been challenging to read. And this is one of them, especially if you look at the greater implications. But what's so beautiful about our tradition and many other esoteric traditions is that Swedenborg had this very strong belief that the sanctity of the word lies in its inner meaning, and that inner meaning relates directly to our inner life. And everything in that inner meaning relates directly to our regeneration, our union with the divine. And so when I look at this image, when I look at this external, literal image of darkness, of love to God being lost, not conjoining with the divine because of a lack of love, which is the means of that conjunction. And I think about it as being a story about me. George Stoll, the great Swedenborgian theologian, once wrote a short book about the Swedenborgian understanding of the Bible, and it's entitled A Book About Us. So if you buy into, which I happen to, the idea that these sacred texts are speaking not necessarily to our external self, but to our internal self, and that's what makes this new age that we are in so special. I put myself in that situation, and I apply these images and these narratives and these characters to my inner self. And one of the things, and I've shared this a lot, that I find so beautiful about this season of the year is it allows us to kind of take inventory, to go within. Where are we at in our relationship to the Christ child and what that represents? Are we allowing it, him, her, into our life? And the message that Swedenborg focuses on when looking at this narrative is a message of coming out of a state of perceived darkness into a state of light. And that's what Jesus represents. And most importantly, in this sense, the love that goes with that. And so the very simple Swedenborgian application of what we just read would be asking ourselves the question, am I lacking in love? Am I lacking in my embrace of love? Do I have a need to be more kind as I move into this new year? To others, to myself, to the planet? And do I acknowledge that it is by means of that love that we realize that union with the divine, and that we progress, regenerate, open ourselves up? So if there's only one question that I think we should kind of move into New Year's Eve with is, am I lacking love? Do I need to open myself up more towards it? And that's a big question that only each individual can answer for themselves, right? But I invite you to just kind of reflect on that as we move into this new year. Is where am I at in my relationship with love? Is my love conditional? Or as that of the divine, is my love unconditional? Do I think of love as a transaction? Or do I think of love as something that freely flows? And Swedenborg would say that it is in our conscious engagement and opening up to love and letting it radiate outward that we access our angelic self in this very moment. So I hope we can continue our convo at coffee hour on Zoom. I think John Scott
Can I add a couple cents?
has comments. Sure. Probably want to distance a bit.
I just want to add that when it comes to love, that which is not connected or united with God has turned love away from God and wrapped it around ourselves. So that's the whole idea of regeneration, is to put off what Thomas pointed out. Am I not loving in this? And don't say it's me. It's the separated spirit that we let go of, and so that we can turn back to God. And I like to add too, when he talks about there was darkness over the planet. And the reading earlier, it says, well, God is omnipresent in totality, everywhere, all at once. Not a little bit of God in Tom's heart, a little bit of God in my heart, but God is totally present with all of us, omnipresent, like the sun that shines within us outward with the warmth of love. But then we separated from this omnipresence of God and brought darkness in the midst of omnipresent light. What does that mean? So all darkness in the spirit is turning away from God and turning to ourself as God, or turning away and turning to ourself. So that which is not loving in any moment is that which is turned away from God and is wrapping God's love, twisting it back around ourselves and our own little self-centered concerns.
Thanks, John Scott. Let's talk some more in coffee hour. And before we continue our conversation at coffee hour, let's once again just enter into a kind of centering. Once again, focus on our breath. Let's once again picture ourselves inside the manger. Standing in front of the crib. Being illuminated and caressed by warmth and light. And now let's each lift up all that we bring into this new week. Let's lift it all up to the Christ child. And let's bear in mind as we go through this week that that Christ child is at our very center. Amen. Thanks so much for joining us, and I can tell there's going to be some good discussion, so please do join us at 11:30 for coffee hour, which will be followed by our Swedenborg reading group. Also on Zoom, we'll be using the same Zoom room. And pay attention to your newsletter about our other groups, Latin group, Dream group, Jonathan Rose's Garden of, well, I almost called it Jonathan Rose's Garden of Theology. Swedenborg's Garden of Theology by Jonathan Rose. So anyways, stay in touch. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to talk to you in just a moment. Peace and power.